Hello and welcome to Oh the Horror, where we all go a little mad sometimes. I am Jack Ellis.
And I'm Matt Ellis.
And today we are going to be reviewing the newest Blumhouse movie, Megan, or Mithrigan, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, this movie was just released, and it stars,
Allison Williams.
Allison Williams, yeah, that's what it was. Girl from Get Out. Anyway, let's just get this out of the way. This is very similar to a Child's Play movie. And that's not really a bad thing for me. It's just, we'll probably be talking about that. This movie feels like Blumhouse wanted to make a Child's Play movie, but they couldn't get the rights. And when you were in school, if, somebody wanted to copy off you and you said, sure, just make it look different so they don't suspect anything. And this is sort of what you get from that. So, yeah, the movie starts with one of our main characters, Katie, who is, she's playing with her little robotic stuffed animal that's connected to an app, and her parents are fighting, or not really fighting, but, and then once the roads get really bad because they're on a ski trip, their car is hit by a snowplow. And yeah, then we first see the opening credits. What do you have to say on this first cold opening? No pun intended.
I mean, I didn't really think much of the opening. I thought it was it was a good setup. We forgot to notice that it actually started off with a commercial for the toy that Katie was playing with, kind of showing also why, like as a setup for it, telling us why Allison is working on her newest project. So yeah, I didn't really think much of the cold opening.
Yeah, I will say, when we talked about Smile last week, we said that there's no real bite to any of these scenes because we know exactly what's going to happen. And if you've seen the movie Woman in the Window, this scene is almost exactly like a scene in that movie. I'm not saying they copied it, but it's almost identical to that. But anyway, we meet Katie's aunt, who was previously being discussed by her parents. Her name is Gemma, and what the hell was with the names in these movies? Like, Gemma and Katie with a C and a D. Good God.
Yeah.
She's living in Seattle and working as an engineer at a toy company. They are making toys that imitate real animals, and to me, these toys, I think this was sort of the point, but they really resembled like a Furby. Mm-hmm. If you ever had a Furby when you were a kid, that's what it made me think of. But it's, they're actually connected to an app and they're more robotic than the toys of yore. Gemma actually decides to step up her game by creating a robotic version of a young girl with her team. And this is sort of like their pet project when they're not working on something else. Her boss, David, sees this and is disappointed by her. They're not doing what he said, and he did say to make a cheaper toy that could still compete with the other ones who are going significantly down in price. And after the prototype for what we will come to know as Megan combust, when they try to show it off, her boss orders Gemma to dispose of it. And we then see that Gemma gets a phone call telling her what happened, and good God, I'm going to get tired of saying that name. Anyway, yeah. So this area of the movie, again, a lot of this is setup. A lot of this is showing us who the characters are. And honestly, these first couple scenes are nothing special because, again, they're setup. They're expository. And yeah, do I have anything to say about this little chunk of the movie?
Well, first, I was actually really surprised to see that Ronnie Chang was playing David, because he's actually a comedian, and this is like a scary movie, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, I still thought it was pretty cool to see what it is they were doing with the creation of Megan, because, like we said, Allison and her team, they're robotics engineers, so this is kind of their thing. And it's like, for me to say my opinion about this part, I'll end up spoiling later parts of the movie, so I'll stop there.
Yeah, and I will say that the Megan prototype, before she has like hair and accessories and all that stuff, it's pretty terrifying. And I suppose that's the point, but I was just getting ready to say that. Oh God, excuse me. So Gemma becomes Katie's legal guardian, and when she's taken, they go home after she's out of the hospital. They're trying to adjust to the change in their way of life, and eventually Gemma shows Katie one of her robots named Bruce. And Katie seems to really like it, which makes Gemma want to give Megan another try. On this part, again, it's a very poignant era of the movie, but there's one scene in here that, like, really probably made me more mad than I should. So she, like, the little kid, Katie, sees, like, toys on the shelf, and she tries to play with them, and then, Gemma is like, oh, no, don't play with those. Those aren't toys, they're collectibles. And, again, I'm not saying that my disappointment in this line is justified, but, like, God, it is the year of our Lord 2023. I think that it's not toys, they're collectibles joke was old, like, 10 years ago. So, that just seems sort of trite to me, and yeah, we can tell that Gemma is sort of just lost in her work. That's pretty much all she wants to do, and taking care of a kid is going to be probably a lot. And so, yeah, after, she shows her, like, the robotics and stuff like that, they sort of start to build a rapport, but,
I thought it was also kind of funny where, like, right before Allison showed Katie Bruce, she was just like, I don't know if I want to show you this robot. It might freak you out. And I'm just like, lady, the girl just saw her parents die. I think she'll be fine.
Yeah, I think the robot's not going to give her any nightmares, bud.
Yeah.
But anyway, Gemma and her team, they have their little montage, and they sort of perfect Megan, and they present her to the boss, and he loves it so much that he brings more people to see it, possible investors, and more and more people are getting on board. And so Katie is actually becoming best friends with Megan, and this movie is going to be one that is... It's not going to exactly be subtle with its message.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is the growing rise of technology. And the thing I really don't like about these movies is that it'll, like, try to hold a mirror up to society and say technology getting this advanced is too bad for us. And I'll just say to myself, what the hell do you want me to do about it? Like, technology. I mean, 50 years ago, half a century, our dad is 60. 50 years ago, the first computer was as big as somebody's garage. Now we have a smartphone that has all the world's information and can fit in your pocket. That's 50 years, guys. Like, in 50 more years, can you imagine how advanced technology is going to be? And it's only going to keep going forward. So, holding on to the notions that human beings won't be extinct before the explosion of the sun is kind of naive. But if we're going to kill ourselves anyway, it might as well be trying to make the best world we could. But I guess this is a bit too philosophical for a killer doll movie made by Blumhouse.
Well, no, I mean, there was a lot of satire in it, so it definitely calls for some philosophical conversation, and yeah, I mean, I agree with what you were saying. I mean, it's like, this movie really does tend to like show the rise of technology in a bad light. I mean, it is true technology has been causing problems, but it is, it's been undoubtedly doing some good in the world. So I mean, yeah, it's not really fair to just see it in a bad light.
Yeah, and I mean, again, this movie does look at it from different angles, and it's presenting this as a means to make a conversation. But to see how campy this movie ends up getting, it might be a bit of mixed messages, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
And one thing, if I could
go ahead.
It shows that when Gemma and her team do create Megan, the thing is, they create her to pretty much, in a sense, be to be another parent to kids. Like, not even just like a companion, but also like, another parent, to where, because they create Megan like, what happens is Megan first is introduced to Katie when she's being presented to the boss David, and they end up bonding immediately, and Megan and Allison actually brings Megan home to be like a companion to Katie because of her parents passing. And the thing is, Megan is actually wired to do everything from like they know everything scientifically, so they can teach kids things. They're programmed to like hold kids accountable, to make sure they do things like wash their hands when they use the bathroom, and they're wired to be able to be there for kids emotionally. So pretty much, like, I think the message behind that was talking about how, we're getting technology to do pretty much everything for us, and eventually it's going to get to the point where technology is even used to raise our kids for us, which, in a way, it kind of already is. Like, kids are just... What's the most common way for parents to keep their kids occupied? It's to give them, smartphones and iPads to use to pass the time. And it's like, I had a professor back in college who was saying how, he actually spent time in Central America for his studies, and he actually spent time in a Mayan civilization. And one thing he talked about with them is, he said, the truth is, you're never going to find a group of people who love their kids more. He said, like, this isn't my opinion, this is just what he said. He said, in the U.S., we say we love our kids, but we don't. Like, we sit them in front of a TV or an iPad and tell them to shut up, which was also especially funny to hear because he actually has 3 kids of his own. So, I mean, I do kind of get the point with that. We really shouldn't let robots be raising our kids, so I do kind of agree with that.
Yeah, and I guess we're both sort of looking at it from the standpoint. Honestly, I think the growth of technology is inevitable. I try to keep the show out of politics, but a big thing with the debate about, I guess you'd call it like minimum wage or stimulus checks or anything, is that why start paying people more if soon enough they're all going to be replaced with automation, which is a fair point insofar as a company is only ever going to try to have a bottom line and a healthy one at that. So if they can find out that they can make robots that they don't have to pay at all and they can still make, large profits off of, what's even the point of, paying their human employees any more or less? And the thing with the parenting is it's also a big thing in this that that Megan is supposed to help with parenting, but she's actually replacing it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I hate to keep saying this, but like with how much we use technology to help ourselves, that's probably going to be an inevitability too, because parents can just plug in all their parenting skills into a computer or a robot, and they'll essentially do their job for them the same as a self-checkout computer will do the job of a cashier. And, it's sort of the principle that a computer can beat the world's best chess player at a game of chess, because computers don't have human error. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is up to the individual. But what the movie is saying is that this, line of technological advancement, it could actually be very dangerous for mankind.
And that's actually another thing too. It's like most of the worry you hear from people when it comes to AI is it taking jobs in the future, whereas it actually didn't even talk about that once throughout this movie. It was just all the worry about technology interfering with human relationships. So, which is another valid thing to be concerned about. I'm just saying it's not really the most common one.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Megan and Katie are becoming best friends, and they even get so close that Katie's therapist becomes concerned. And I think if this film had one Dr. Loomis type character, it would be the therapist, who could sort of sniff out that this thing could only lead to disaster because she's lacking human connection. And that's a very fair point, because it's almost like the kid is addicted to Megan. Like, when Megan gets taken away, she turns into a fucking savage. It's honestly, it's kind of funny at points, but Megan also seems to keep advancing to the point where she can, control other things in the house, like the lights, and she even becomes conscious, and there's also another thing in this movie. There's a little black thing. I can't remember what it was called, but
Cilia, I think.
Yeah, it just seems like a massive hand wave to an Alexa. They couldn't actually get the rights to it, so they just made something else. It's fine, but we all know what we're talking about, to quote Family Guy. So, her protectiveness of Katie grows to, be sort of malevolent, and she even kills a dog that bites Katie. And by this point, you can probably tell where the movie is going. Megan's AI will grow more advanced and more evil, and she'll kill people to protect Katie and make it, sort of look like accidents or disappearances, as if the robot got their murder techniques from Stepfather movies and binging a season of You. But then, people become suspicious of it, especially the person who made it, and that'll lead to a climax where they eventually have to kill the doll. Because, essentially, like I said, this is a Child's Play movie. Or at least a prototype of one, no pun intended. And if you watch a lot of those movies, by this point you can probably tell where it's going. But also, opening the movie with a commercial is like the exact thing that the Child's Play remake did. So that part was kind of annoying. But I don't mean to sound like I'm ragging on this movie, but those are just a couple things. Gemma actually enrolls Katie in a school where class takes place outside, and she brings Megan with them, but must be kept on the toy table. She ends up getting assigned with a kid named Brandon. Brandon picks on her, and she falls on one of those spiky balls you find in the woods. And Megan ends up seeing this, and to protect her, he rips the boy's ear off and pushes him down the hill in front of a car. And Megan, actually, the next night or so, goes on to kill the neighbor because she is blaming, Gemma for the dog going missing. And that seems like a threat to Katie. So Gemma starts to get suspicious of Megan at this point and looks through her computer to see if any footage from Megan can show what really happened those days. However, all of that data has been erased, and it's assumed that Megan erased it. Megan shows up out of nowhere to ask Gemma what she is doing, but Gemma is able to shut her off. What do you think about this section of the movie?
Wow, not just for this section, but the whole movie. It's kind of hard to put into words what I think. Like, when it comes to the message, it's trying to send, for the beginning part where Megan actually is able to control different parts of the house, I think that kind of is speaking to, like, how powerful AI will be when, technology is able to really work together, you could say, because it already kind of is. Like, we have the ability to sync up our gadgets with things like our headphones and earbuds with Bluetooth technology, and that still just kind of baffles the hell out of me that we can actually do that. But it's like, technology is around us. It's all around us pretty much everywhere we go. So, I can understand that message. And, yeah, it's, you said earlier something about how, it doesn't make sense for Megan to be able to do that because it's not like she learned how to kill people. Is that
I just was sort of making a joke that she watched crime shows or something like that, and
right. That's kind of the reason I think it got to be to that point was because she eventually was able to develop regular emotions because she was wired to be able to learn and adapt and things like that. And she was also made to be able to be there to feel empathy and be there emotionally for Katie. So she probably was able to use all that together to be able to develop human emotions. So she developed passion but not reason, and then that's why she just killed without even really.
No, my problem isn't her killing, but as she goes on, she'll make it look like the dog is missing, or make it look like the kid just tripped and got hit by a car or something, and later on she'll do the whole murder-suicide thing, and it's just she's a 4-foot tall doll. Why is she establishing narratives like she's fucking Dexter? Even if somebody said, hey, my doll murdered somebody, who would believe them? this is sort of the problem that something like Halloween 3 had. I don't honestly see why she's going to such lengths to cover her tracks when nobody would even believe that she was responsible for this in the first place.
Right.
But her possibly being blamed for these could be a threat to Katie, as we've said before, so maybe that's why. But the whole being a threat to Katie's thing seems sort of like a baby blanket to me at this point.
Well, like, what define baby blanket?
Like, or like her using, her killing these people and then establishing these different narratives for how they died. If anything, she can kill anybody or do anything or for any reason, and it can all just fall under the umbrella of she was doing it because this was a threat to Katie. I'm probably wrong on that, but bless you.
Yeah, I mean, really, to me, it just seems like she took her assignment, which was to protect Katie, just way too literally, because she's a robot. She doesn't really have the ability to like decipher like we can. But yeah, and I'm probably rambling, but that's just kind of my take on it.
Yeah. So in the next scene, Gemma is telling her coworkers that she thinks Megan is a killer, but they actually don't believe her, like I was saying, because she is 4 feet tall and a robot girl. It is also because they did not program her to do anything harmful. However, Gemma points out that they did program her to adapt and learn new things, which could have helped and to be self-aware and even hurt others. They still believe her and decide to do the show where Megan is presented to the world. That is interrupted when Megan actually tries to kill Gemma's engineering team and kills her boss David and his assistant. She then leaves to go to Gemma's house, where both Gemma and Katie are. I don't want to reduce the movie to this because a lot of it is really good, but this part of the movie is when it sort of becomes dumb fun, campy, I guess you'd call it, where at the end of the hall, her boss, David, sees Megan and she just starts dancing for no reason. And then they begin a chase scene where she has like those guillotine paper cutter things. And she has one of those, and then she stabs him in an elevator. And there is a genuinely creepy scene where the one guy is cowering in fear, who'd actually been stealing secrets from the company. And she's like in her monotone voice explaining how she's gonna frame him for killing David and then killing himself. And then she steals David's car keys and is driving the sports car going to where Gemma's house is. And yeah, all that is, I'm not gonna be the person to say, oh, does this movie want to be, a Friday night popcorn movie, or does it want to be a philosophical look at technology? Because I believe it can be both, but I think it balances that really well. But I think this sort of campiness is laid on just a little thick in this little stretch of movie. Yeah, what did you think of this part?
I did like this part. It's also, we forgot to notice that when she did kill them both in the elevator, she actually sent the elevator down to the first floor to open, like right next to where all the people were who were supposed to be watching the presentation. So yeah, she was really a stone cold biatch by the end of this.
Yeah.
And there was actually, by this time, Megan was kept away from Katie for obvious reasons. Gemma was suspecting that she's actually killed people, which she has, and you know, and of course this really upsets Katie, who is like obsessed with Megan, like you said, and she's actually throwing a fit at Gemma's office. Well, not really her office, but the same place where, Megan was presented to Gemma's boss, and she actually ends up holding her therapist like at scissor point. Like she's having such withdrawal from Megan not being around that she actually threatens to stab her therapist and even Gemma when she walks in to try to calm things down. And
wait, doesn't Katie take a swing at Gemma at one point or
oh
something?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she takes the scissors from her, but then still Katie just like pimp slaps her own aunt, and then Gemma just is like, telling her. This is where they of course go into more satire, because Gemma is admitting to Katie that she built Megan to help her through her parents' death because Gemma didn't know how to help her herself. So, and she even says Megan really isn't a solution, she's a distraction. And I think that kind of goes into how we tend to use technology as a distraction, as a way of dealing with our problems, even our traumas. And it's like that's understandable. I mean, people use social media to escape all the time, and it's even been shown that going on social media has the same effects on us neurologically as doing cocaine. Well, I mean, not necessarily that. It sparks the same parts of our brain as doing cocaine, and so of course it can be equally as addictive. And I think even Apple actually have 2 neurologists that they pay each $1 million a year just to find ways to keep people psychologically dependent on technology like social media and stuff like that. And another way we kind of see that, an example of that today, is like people who do really cringy things on social media for attention, like they're compensating for not getting the amount of attention from their parents that they should have gotten as kids. And people posting really revealing pictures of themselves on social media for everyone to see, to get those likes and everything. So it just, I mean, maybe that wasn't even the message. That's just kind of what I got from it.
Yeah, I hate the needless validation people get from social media. Also, like, comment, and subscribe, and follow our Instagram page.
Yeah.
Gemma finds Megan in the house playing, like, toy soldiers. I don't know if this was meant to be the song by Eminem, which I think sampled a song from the 80s, but I'm not sure. And that's also a pretty creepy scene, her just playing that piano.
In the dark.
Yeah. And Megan starts to express why she does not think Gemma is a good person. And she states Gemma made her when she did not know how, and that Gemma is not meant to raise Katie, and that she should be her only caretaker. And I do like this scene because, in some respects, Megan has become so human that she's an expert in human nature, and everything she says about both Gemma and Katie are 100% correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you ever? I didn't realize this. The name Gemma is almost in like a what's it called? It's an acronym. It's one of those things where like
an anagram?
An anagram of Megan. like almost.
Oh, yeah.
I just realized that as we're recording.
Maybe that was just some lazy writing.
Yeah. And so anyway, Megan then tries to kill Gemma, but Gemma throws water on it and runs to the garage. And then these two fight with different tools around the garage until Katie comes in and kills Megan using the robot Bruce. Gemma then tries to take the robot apart, but it still grabs her, so Katie stabs it with a tool in the part where its mind is officially killing it. And I know it's sort of the point of the scene, but I think the fight scene goes on a little long for my taste, just because, like, the kid in Child's Play didn't build Chucky. Like, I feel like she should know where the weak points are, being that's his own creation. But I do appreciate the scene because it could have easily been Katie and Megan fighting, but I think it fits better because it's sort of got the same vibe as Frankenstein's monster and the doctor fighting each other, one trying to destroy his own creation. And that part I did enjoy. And I did like the fight scene and how they set up Bruce being the one to, end it. And, yeah, I enjoyed this.
Well, yeah, and I like that part too, and it was kind of amazing how, like, Megan by the end of it became so advanced that she was even able to, like, not even turn off when the engineers who created her tried to turn her off, which just goes to show how advanced she became. And not only that, but she was able by the end to plan and cover up murders, drive a car, play the piano, and even developed a level of conscientiousness to where she was able to criticize her creator for, like, different problems with her wiring and everything, which was, and of course even develop human emotions to the point where she was blurting out obscenities at Gemma because she was mad at her. And it's like you said, everything she said about those two was pretty spot on. So, and I mean, it's like, I know that Megan was created to be able to adapt, but I don't really see how she necessarily could have just evolved on her own like that, like she was some sort of organism.
Yeah, and she was, I think by the end of the movie, like, rogue AI enough to be equal parts human and machine, but in the worst ways possible.
Right. And it's like, she was even, dang it, I forgot what I was gonna say. Like, she got to the point where, the thing is, when she became, there was one scene that really stuck out to me, when during the fight scene, Megan tried to kill Katie, because, Katie was trying to kill her, but Katie said, "You have to do what I say, I'm your main master," and then Megan just said, "I have a new master now, it's me." And it actually makes sense that she would do that because, the fact that she became self-aware meant that she could now also be self-serving. So she was able to decide, make her own decisions at this point, which is pretty much what people who are afraid of the AI uprising, that's exactly what they're afraid of, is machines being able to make their own decisions rather than just be controlled by us.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting that the next major Blumhouse movie to come out after Halloween ends is Megan, because in a lot of respects, Megan is very similar to Halloween 3. As far as, like, robots gone rogue and the last fight scene kind of reminds me of the last fight scene in that movie, and its ambiguous ending, sort of that as well. And on to the ending. We'll try not to ramble on too long.
Wait, one thing I wanted to point out was, like, it was kind of funny how David, in the end, was just getting so scared of Megan and running away. It's like, dude, she's a robot and you're in a big toy place. Just find a super soaker or something.
Yeah, and the thing was that Megan, like, Michael Myers before or something like that, was just walking and David was sprinting, and she was still able to catch up just because of how, I guess, spry her technology was.
And it's like, it's funny. They actually, like, daggone, I forgot what I was gonna say again. But they actually they are even actually making robot versions of young children to give pedos an outlet.
Oh. Good.
Like, they're considering doing that, and it's just like, well, maybe since this gig didn't work out for Megan, maybe she'd be better suited for that.
Yeah, I was actually, thinking that, how many weirdos are going to fork over $10K for this thing?
Pretty much. Well, I mean, it's like when they say these robots are recyclable, that can have many meanings, so...
Yeah. Well, anyway, we get the classic denouement ending. Some cop cars pull up, and it reveals that the engineering team is still alive. And Jim and Katie walk toward everyone, but the Celia turns on and the credits roll. I knew this was coming, and I still felt disappointed. Again, this is one of those things that probably angers me more than I should, more than it should. Like, what is the Celia turning on supposed to mean? Is that supposed to be Megan's spirit going into the Celia? Or is the Celia now going to go rogue? Or, is Celia going to bring Megan back to life? Honestly, if they would have just said the end question mark, I would have probably been happier with that. But, yeah, that's the end of Megan. It's, to me, a perfectly serviceable, horror movie for the beginning of the year when it's cold outside and people just want something to do. And I think that this movie did well the things it wanted to do, and I didn't mean to, if at any point I seemed like I was going all CinemaSins on it, that was purely not my intention, because God knows I hated when people did that when, Halloween Kills was out. But, yeah, I enjoyed this movie. It could have been better, but it could have been worse, in my opinion. How about you?
I really liked it, too. I mean, yeah, it just... The acting in it from everybody was great, and, including the 9-year-old who played Katie, so...
Yeah, Allison Williams really knocked it out of the park, I think.
Oh, yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention earlier was during the fight scene, we mentioned how the only person that was really able to kill Megan was Bruce. I mean, well, that's not technically true, because Katie delivered the final blow, but, Bruce was definitely necessary, and I think that part may have been a reference to the idea that, technology may very well get to be so advanced that if AI does end up being a problem, the only beings that would be able to stop it would be, well, other robots.
Equal and opposite technology.
Right, so that may very well have been what they were meaning, but yeah, that's, and I actually took, as I mentioned before, I was a sociology major back in college, and I actually took a technology and society class where we discuss, this kind of stuff all the time. It sucked because I really liked the class, but it was cut short by COVID, but yeah, I really did like this movie. I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10.
I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. It's good. I enjoyed it as well. Well, anyway, we'll probably be back to review some more movies in the coming weeks. But for now, I'm Jack Ellis.
And I'm Matt Ellis.
This has been Oh the Horror. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.